iHeartRadio Broadway, driven by Mercedes-Benz. The best or nothing.
So first, welcome the Broadway Women's Alliance to iHeartRadio Broadway. Thank you all for joining me today.
Thank you for having us.
So you all are kicking off our International Women's Month worth of coverage. So thank you all for joining us. First, because you all don't normally do interviews, I'd love for each of you to introduce yourself. So Katie, I'm going to start with you.
Thanks. I'm Katie Dalton, the Executive Vice President of Audience Rewards, which is the loyalty program for Broadway.
Tracy.
Hi, I'm Tracy Geltman. I am the COO at Stacy Minich Productions, who is currently the lead producer of Dear Evan Hansen.
Diana.
I am Diana Salome, the Director of Marketing and Communications at Sereno Coin, which was founded by Nancy Coin in 1977.
Kiki.
Hi, I'm Kristen Kiki Rathbun. I'm the VP of Communications at Spotco.
Jennifer.
I am Jennifer Isaacson. I'm a producer and also the executive producer at Rock 15 Productions.
Molly.
Hi, I'm Molly Barnett. I am a press agent and I'm the co-founder, co-owner of Grapevine Public Relations, a small boutique theatrical PR company.
And Beth.
I'm Beth Watson. I'm a VP account director also at Spotco with Kiki.
So you all made a decision a little while ago, more than a year ago at this point, to start the Broadway Women's Alliance. What was the inciting factor to start the Broadway Women's Alliance? And Katie, I'm going to throw that question to you.
Thanks. So what eventually became the Broadway Women's Alliance actually evolved starting back in the aftermath of the 2016 presidential election. So around that time, those of us on this call found that we were having organic conversations around the challenges that women face in work and in life. And we also found that lots of other women were having those conversations as well. So from those conversations, we then planned a series of group gatherings, which happened very informally over a period of several years. And those gatherings revealed two things. One, that many of us were having very similar experiences and challenges as women in our industry. And two, that even among the small community that makes up Broadway, we were somewhat disconnected across the different offices and different teams that make up the industry. So from there, we started with a really simple idea, which is that the women working on the business side of Broadway should know one another. So we planned more gatherings, more women joined in, and over time, that simple idea evolved into what is now our overarching goal, which is to connect women with careers on the business side of Broadway, and to provide all of us with an outlet and a community for peer-to-peer support. A word that we like to use for that is, instead of mentors, we call each other friend-tours. And by January of 2020, the 7 of us on this call who had been taking the lead in organizing these gatherings, we gave ourselves a name, announced a calendar of events, and became the Broadway Women's Alliance.
So Tracy, why do you think a year ago was the right time for the Broadway Women's Alliance to kind of emerge as this really powerful force of a collection of women?
Diana, did you want to? I feel like I'm staring at your face, Diana, because I know you have the perfect answer for this. So I feel like it would be a service if I let you answer this.
You're very kind, Tracy. Tracy often cites this one moment, and I don't disagree, where we took the group from being a bit more of an informal group to deciding, okay, maybe we should formalize this a little bit more. And it was April of 2019, and we were getting together. Kiki had set up a after work drinks for us at the Ribbon in Times Square, Midtown. Does everybody remember being able to go have drinks after work in Midtown? And it was a beautiful room in the back of the restaurant. And we got in there. Lo and behold, there is a giant dinner table in the middle of this room, and there was no space to move and mingle. We were literally like, we had to sit down at the table. And Kiki turned to me and she said, "What are we gonna do?" And I just said, I've got this. I'm gonna lead a conversation tonight. I'm gonna do it. And so the room was boxing themed. Not sure why. It was totally fine. Grabbed a trophy, a boxing trophy, sat down in the middle of the table, gave everybody a piece of paper and a pen from the wait staff, and said, write down how much money you make and put it in this chalice, trophy, whatever it was. And everyone kind of looked a little bit scared. I was scared. My blood pressure went like from 0 to 1,000,000. And we did it. We all wrote down how much money we made anonymously, wrote it down on a piece of paper, folded it up, put it around, and then we read it out loud. And that started a conversation of us talking about what it's like to be a woman working in this industry. And we probably sat there for 3 or 4 hours that night, talking and building upon those questions, talking about being supervisors, talking about what our supervisors are like, talking about what it's like to work with each other, talking about literally looking at each other and asking with accountability, when is the last time you asked for a raise? When is the last time you advocated for yourself? When is the last time you advocated for your team? And the answers were so disparately different. And we realized that the idea of sitting down with your peers and not only connecting on a social level, which is so important, but actually finding change, finding that strength within yourself. Women don't need strength. They have it. They need the power to use it. And we often find it in that great word that Katie said in our friend tours. And that moment is when we all realize, the 7 of us sitting there in that room together around the table, okay, let's do something with this. So Tracy, thank you for kicking with the power of all of us being there together in that night, and the many other women that were there too, that I made that special moment.
And for full transparency, I'm a member of the Broadway Women's Alliance. And I will say, when I saw the announcement that went out on social through a few people that I knew, I was like, this is what I've been missing, because when I was at Playbill, it was a very male-dominated world that I was in, and I didn't really know anybody. And I was in such a different position where I didn't have other women to connect to in my position. So when I moved to iHeart and I had this opportunity to join this amazing group of women, it was like, oh, this is what I've been missing in my career for the last 10 years. This peer-to-peer, or what was the word we're now using?
Mentors, yeah.
It was really nice to walk into my very first meeting to go, oh, right, this world actually exists, and it actually is a world where everyone is going to support one another in the best way possible.
I think that's a huge part of why we formalized it. I mean, it was sort of started with the idea that we all work in the same industry. It's a very small industry, yet so many of us either don't know each other or only know each other by email and not by face. And we kind of took this idea of like, I'd love to walk into an ad meeting or a meet and greet for a new show or an opening night or a press junket and know the women in the room, be able to look across the table and know every woman in the room and sort of know that they have my back, I have their back, I will advocate for them, they will advocate for me. And I think that's, SJ, thank you for saying that. And I think you are not alone. So many people were like, oh, this is what I've been missing. This is what our industry has been missing. And so that was another one of the reasons that we sort of decided to formalize it beyond just like a let's have drinks and network organization.
And with that, sorry, go ahead.
I was just going to say, also our industry is just so incredibly incestual, but also competitive. And I think, just speaking personally, I get such a kick out of and a power trip out of saying that Diana Salome, my direct competitor on paper, like literally is one of my best friends. And I love watching the industry like not know what to do with that. And I just find that there's so much power in shared experiences. I mean, Diana knows exactly what I go through because she does the exact same thing on just other shows or with other clients. And it's not like we're, passing trade secrets to each other. We're supporting each other. And I think that's something that I've really found was the strength of women doing this. I think we all immediately went to that support place of you're safe, you're among us, we're together in this. And I think that's something special too, that to Molly's point, that was like, oh, we're onto something here. This needs to be more.
And I also think with the Broadway Women's Alliance, being female identifying members, it's open to anybody who wants to join. There are other organizations that exist, but you tend to have someone sponsor you or write a novella basically to be accepted and used and all of that. But you all made a decision that whoever wanted to join could join. And Jennifer, I'm going to throw that to you. Why was it important to keep this just an open forum for anybody to walk into?
Well, we wanted to make it so that anyone in the industry could join, whether you're a first year assistant or you are a senior veteran in this industry with 20 years behind you in experience. And so we wanted to make it a flat organization where it really is peer-to-peer friend tour, as we're saying, so that anyone can walk in and have the same experience. And I think that we wanted to create an opportunity that we hadn't really seen. There are other organizations out there that are all doing fantastic things in this industry, but we didn't see something that brought in all women together on the business side of Broadway in one room to have a conversation as peers and equals in that way. So that's why it was very important to us to make it, to have no barrier to entry, as it were. I think we are probably the easiest organization to join on Broadway. You just go to our website, click join us, and fill out a Google form, and you're in. And that's all it is. It's just showing up to our events, and being part of the community is the only requirement.
And I will say, joining is not intimidating by any stretch of the imagination. You walk in and it's like, oh, welcome. It's the most inviting group of women that you'd ever want to imagine that bring you into the Alliance. So thank you all for making it so easy to join, but also the friendliest group that you could possibly imagine, because sometimes it can be intimidating to walk into a room with all of these major power players within the Broadway industry. So I thank you for that.
That's so nice.
SJ, somebody once said to me that women should stand in horseshoes, not circles. And that's the spirit that we like to keep. There's always a spot available for someone to walk into, literally and metaphorically.
That's such a nice saying, Diana. I love that.
I think it's very lovely. It came to me from Leslie Barrett. I don't know if it was Leslie Barrett saying or somebody else's. So if it was passed down to her from another woman, then power to that woman. But I thought that was pretty beautiful.
So you did talk about the peer-to-peer mentorship, the friendtorship, as you're calling it. Tracy, why is it so important right now for that to happen within our community? To have the opportunity for women to talk to other women, not just from a networking perspective, but just a dialogue in general. Why is that important, especially right now?
That's a really great question. And there's a generational component to this, and then there's our industry component to this. There's a lot of people in our business who had to claw and fight their way to the positions that they're in now. And there's a little bit of a sentiment that many of them feel like because they had to fight their way to that position, that the people after them should have to do the same. And I don't believe any of us in this group would be any less grateful for a position we were in if we got to say we were supported and nurtured on the way to get there. And so could you imagine if somebody would say, I would only be grateful for a job if I had to fight my way? Or could you flip it around and say, I believe that I'd be more grateful to say, look at all the people that supported me and look at all the people that came with me. So that sentiment and that idea is why we're doing this, so that we can say, what do you need? This is what I need today. Here's how we can help each other, so that when we're intimidated to walk into a room, I'm still intimidated to walk into a room, not BWA, but to a group of people who are power players in our business. And I believe that some people are still that with their peers. And I want to be in an industry where I can walk in and have value and respect of those people, but not be intimidated, because I know that we're there for each other. So that, I think, and then on top of, because of COVID now being so far away from each other, we're leaning on each other more and more. And I felt yesterday we had been texting so much earlier in the week to prepare for this. And then yesterday it was kind of quiet. And I was like, are they there? Should we message? I was like, did I miss any text? But I really think that's important. And so that's for each other. And then we're also trying to look at the future and next generation. And how do we get more women? How do we get more people into this fold that, kind of believe and can drink the same Kool-Aid as the rest of us, as it would be.
And this wasn't a question that was prepared, but do you think the women who are coming into this industry now, either fresh out of college or fresh out of an internship, have it, I don't want to say easier is not the right word, but do you find that they're a little bit more of go-getters in terms of joining organizations like this, or being able to speak up and have these open conversations? Or do you think it's something that still needs to be addressed and still needs to be kind of changed right now.
Yeah. I think easier is the right word. I hope it's easier
Mhm.
because like you, I also for a very long time, and Jen and I actually were in a similar office where we were kind of, it was a big community, but an isolated community, excuse me. And it wasn't until I left that office and started working in other places that I found other women in our business. So I hope it is easier, that barrier to entry is, if that's the right phrase I'm using, is easier and that people can join the community earlier. But I also anybody else feel any that way about some of the younger generation?
Yeah, I mean, I feel like, in terms of our generation, we want to make the ladder behind us even wider, and we want to make it an easier climb for them coming up. And so I think that we're really focused on kind of building that pipeline, because we want there to be more women in the industry. We want there to be more women of power and more women in executive positions. And how are they going to get there? They got to start out somewhere. They got to start out as assistants or first year, second year people in a company. So I think I do want it to be easier for them and make it easier for them and be able to kind of have the door open, have the ladder wider behind us as we're kind of going forward, and make introductions for them, have conversations with them about career and their trajectory, and have that opportunity to kind of build that pipeline. I think it's really important and kind of what we're all about. Kind of creating the opportunities we wish we had when we first started out. Like I would have loved to have had this when I was first starting out in the industry.
Absolutely. And I want to ask, like, Beth, I haven't talked to you yet, but what advice would you have to somebody who's a woman who's starting out in the industry right now? What actionable steps should she be taking to reach out to, not, let's take Broadway Women's Alliance off the table for right now, but if she's just walking into this industry, what advice would you give her to say, these are the actionable steps that you should take to feel included?
I mean, I think it's a mix. I think there has to be a level of putting yourself out there and reaching out to people. I think that a lot of times people focus on, impressing your boss or finding a mentor or things like that. But I think that what this group of women shows is that it's not just about that. I think it's about finding your people and finding your group, and we always try to encourage, especially the younger women that have joined BWA, who might be sort of a generation behind us even. I think we try to encourage them, find your people, because you're going to grow up in this industry together. Like Kiki and I started at Spocko 2 weeks apart from each other. We were like, little 22-year-old babies. We sat right next to each other, and, we just chose to kind of cling to each other and go on the journey together. And it has helped us so much throughout our career. We're so different. We do different things at Spotco, but we've always been able to bat ideas off of each other. Like if I need a wingman to go to an event, because maybe I'm intimidated that I won't know anybody there, I can bring somebody with me. And so I think that women starting out, obviously, if you're starting out literally right now in COVID, it's harder, but I do think that it's important to be willing to just find your people. Like the theater industry is such a friendly place. I did not come from a theater background. I did not think I'd be accepted in this community. And as soon as I started, I was like, oh my God, like everyone fits in here. It's just like this weird, wacky group of people, and everyone wants to be friends and everyone wants to meet you. And so I think that people should sort of try to put aside any intimidation and just say, like, the person across the table wants to make friends just as much as I do. So, let me put myself out there and be friendly to them. And I think that's going to be what helps you throughout your career.
And with Broadway Women's Alliance, Molly, what was it like going from the first meeting where you are, at Blue Ribbon around a table discussing, salaries and all of that, to the last meeting we had right before the shutdown at Today Ticks? What was the difference going from that first meeting to then this amazing roundtable conversation at the Today Ticks office?
Well, I think, there was a lot of evolution that happened in that year or two in between. And internally, this group of women that you're seeing right now, we had a lot of conversations about, what do we want this organization to be? How formal do we want it to be? Do we want it to be networking? Do we want it to be programming? Do we want it to be a combination of those things? What do we want to call ourselves? Like the fact that we ended up with Broadway Women's Alliance, I wish that you could see the notes and notes and notes of like, what should this organization be called? Who are some famous women in the theater industry we should name it after? I think we landed in the right place, but
sure.
But the point is that it was quite a journey to get from that ribbon table to where we were in March, right before the shutdown. And so in January of 2020, we sort of formally launched the Broadway Women's Alliance. We had done all of the work to figure out who we were and what we wanted to do and what we wanted to be. We had a wonderful launch event at Glass House, which I cannot wait to go back to Glass House. Like, first thing I can do when the world goes back to normal is Glass House. And we had a real launch event. And from there, we had a March event that was an incredible event. That Tracy, you might want to talk a little bit about what the event was, since you were one of the leaders of it. But it was the first time all of the women of BWA were in the same room together for a formal programming event. And we weren't sure how people were going to react. We weren't sure if this is where the organization should be going. We hadn't really done anything more official than drinks and networking and conversation. And the reaction was so wonderful. And I think people really needed that conversation. I think everyone was really happy to be in that room. I think we all learned stuff. And, a lot of us are at a place where, we have been around for a long time, and we've been in this industry, and we've learned a lot, and we've met a lot of people. And the question is sort of, well, where do we go from here? And I think that event was sort of the answer to that question. And then, of course, I think that event was like March 6th or something. It was really, really close to the Broadway shutdown. And then, of course, we had big dreams of more events like that, and everything changed and the world changed. And we really had to pivot our programming and figure out how we were going to be here for the community, given the change in circumstances. And I will say, I think, more credit to the ladies on this call than me, for sure, because they have been incredible. But I think we really rose to the occasion. I mean, I think, COVID sort of forced us to do virtual programming and invite the community to stay connected. I mean, I know for me, I moved to the suburbs and I worked from home always, but I felt really disconnected from the theater community. And having the Broadway Women's Alliance to do a monthly check-in or an event on how to figure out my finances in this new environment, or how to look at my resume and think about pivoting careers. Luckily, I haven't needed to do that, but unfortunately, there are a lot of women who are part of Broadway Women's Alliance who have needed to do that, whether temporarily or permanently. And so I'm just so grateful to the women of the Broadway Women's Alliance, both for rising to the occasion and really pivoting the programming to provide helpful resources for our members, but also to be there as a community and help us feel connected to the industry and help us feel connected to our peers. And so I think I answered like 7 questions that I made up on my own in there. But hopefully I also answered your question.
You did, 100%. I will say the very first virtual check-in that we all did, I will say was so, it was needed in the worst way possible, because when you're all working from home, I'm in Astoria still, I was still in the city, and I was like, I haven't really talked to anybody besides doing like these random pitches going, iHeartRadio Broadway is still here with whatever help you need. But just having a decompression moment to sit with all of these women to basically be like, I don't know what's happening. And just being able to say that out loud to a collection of people in the industry was just a breath of fresh air, I think, for all of us to take that moment with a glass of wine in our hand to be like, we don't know what's happening on ourselves, but we're going to try and figure it out.
And we're going to go through it together. I think more than anything else, like, we're all in the same boat and we're going through it together. And yeah, we can't meet for a drink at Glass House, but we can still talk about what's going on and how we're feeling and like ride those waves together.
And before we talk about how you all pivoted during COVID, Tracy, I want to go back to that last meeting at Today Ticks. What was it like putting that program together for the first time for the Broadway Women's Alliance?
Great question. There was like this perfect storm of things that happened at the top of 2020. One being the name, which we came up with, which we just recently, I've stumbled across the picture from that event our drinks night. And then we had, we had that launch event at Glass House, which I forget who it was. It was either Kiki or Kate. One of the ladies on this Zoom said in Glass House, we had practiced and rehearsed our speeches. And then somebody said, does anybody have any questions? And like a tidal wave of like emotion, like the entire room's arms went up. And for like an hour, people started sharing. And it was like this most overwhelming thing of like, oh, we're so on to something. And we got a lot of feedback from that. And I think, Jen, you may have even done a survey where we got some feedback. And then March was Women's Month. And the Women's Day on Broadway was coming up. And so we programmed, I believe, that event like around that same week. And Beth and Kiki introduced us to Aletha, who is the COO at Spotco, who also leads these kind of events. And truth be told, like I had decided at one point, like, oh, what if I asked if like everybody was comfortable if I led it with her. And because of the support, I was like, oh, I think maybe we can do this. And so Aletha and I brainstormed like, what would it take to just do like a session like that? And so then it just it really came organically. And I had also, one other thing is I had gone to the Oprah 2020 Vision Tour in February at the Barclays Center, and a woman named Rachel Hollis spoke at that event. And I had just finished reading her book, and I was like, oh, well, what if I just like take the best parts of her book and just say those out loud to everybody? I don't need to write this myself. And so that's how that became. And it was such a cool event. And then into COVID, I think it was Katie and Kiki that talked about doing a programming like that by bringing an outsider in. So it was really organic. And to this day, I don't know really sort of where it like, oh, this is the idea, but it kind of organically happened because of all those events.
Well, the organic conversation that came out of that presentation, I don't even want to call it a presentation, but it was just one of the most natural, free-flowing conversations between all of us that day. And it was so lovely to see everyone just be completely open and honest, because you don't necessarily always get that in a room full of industry leaders. So thank you for that. That was great.
Thank you for saying that. Wasn't it cool when I remember we did a thing where people had to say something nice about somebody, and it just kept going and going and going. And I was like, this is really neat.
Again, like you just don't get this a lot. You don't get this openness with a lot of organizations, and you have made it your mission to make this organization as open and honest, and just having a natural dialogue has been, I'll say it again, a breath of fresh air, I think, for all of us right now.
And I think we want it to feel like a safe space. That's really important to everybody, because, as amazing as the theater industry is, it can be gossipy, it can be small, and, sometimes you don't know who your friends are. And we wanted it to feel like a place where not only is anyone welcome, but anyone is free to share and know that they're in a safe space, and like all of these women have your back.
Yeah.
And I hope that comes across, in the experiences people have at our events, because I think that's really important to everybody.
And let's talk about the events. So now pivoting with COVID and the pandemic, Beth, just what has the programming been like for those that don't know, the online programming that has taken place during the last 12 months, which is weird to say in itself?
Yeah, so it's quite a mix. I think that as you referenced early on, it was sort of like, let's just all get on Zoom and, see each other and talk, because I think that that's just what felt like we needed, everyone needed at the time. And early on, it was just like, are we only going to be shut down for 4 weeks? Is it going to be till June? What's it going to be? So it was really just focused on supporting each other and being able to show, visually that we're all in this together. And then as it became clear that this Broadway shutdown is going to go for a long time, we really started to figure out, okay, how do we mix that with stuff that's actually going to help people? Like, what do people need right now? So we try to really listen to our members. We have a couple of core groups of OG members who help to kind of like advise us and brainstorm with us. So it's like, what do people need? And just like doing a lot of listening and moving through that. So we kind of do a mix of social mixers, networking versus planned sort of programming. And that programming has ranged, like it might be a career coach, it might be a finance coach, it might be a kind of a self-care, holistic, inspirational message. We've kind of tried to hit everything, making sure that we're finding ways to have, hit everybody. We have a pretty diverse range of ages, of types of work that people do within the theater. So making sure that there's a little bit of something for everybody, that we're being as inclusive as possible. We're always stretching ourselves and our members and in what we're thinking about, what we're challenging ourselves with, and what we're learning. So yeah, it's been an interesting journey, but I think we're kind of just taking it month at a time, quarter at a time, and figuring out what should we do next.
And sorry, go ahead. Sorry, Katie.
Yeah, I was just going to add that I think it's been a beautiful exercise in how well we ourselves have done at networking throughout our careers, because all of our guest speakers have been a favor of one of these 7 women. And I think we've been so heartened by so many women saying, absolutely, how many women do you want to talk to? When do you want me to do this? I'll absolutely do it for free, or, donate a class after the fact to one of your members. Like that, I think has been still mind-boggling to me, that so many women are like, yes, I will help not only you because you're my friend and confidant, but like your whole network that you're asking me to help. And that's just been nuts.
But also with the online programming, it's not just, and I don't want to say just, but there's the serious and there's the lightheartedness too. So you have the book club, you have the trivia night that just happened. I mean, you have been able to pepper in some really fun events for people to be a part of. Jennifer, can you talk a little bit about those events as well?
Yeah, so Diana has this really great phrase that I love that she says all the time. It's called meeting the moment. And so I think that we wanted to meet the moment not only in these serious kind of events and do something about career and financial and focusing on all the negatives of 2020, but yeah, we wanted to have fun, positive events as well. And because I think that's all about community building. I think that you make stronger connections with someone when you're playing on a trivia team with them than you're going to if you're just going to a networking event, you're going to network. You know what I mean? Like that's just, you're going to create different opportunities to have conversation. You're going to have different memories together. You're going to have this experience. And so we wanted to be able to create those touch points for our community, to be able to come together and be lighthearted, because 2020 was such a heavy year, particularly for our industry, because a lot of our women were furloughed or out of work or having to make some kind of pivot, moving out of the city. All sorts of different things were going on, had loved ones who were sick or ill. So we wanted to create levity, and we wanted to be able to have something positive to come together over and have that experience.
And can I just say, sidebar, I can't wait to stop saying the word pivot after we get back. I think pivot is a word that should be stricken from the record.
Doesn't have to pivot again.
Never pivoting ever again. So we all just celebrated the 1-year anniversary of the Broadway Women's Alliance. Katie, do you want to talk about what that was like to celebrate with everybody, virtually speaking?
Sure. That was such a rewarding moment for all of us. I think it's fair to say that none of us knew, if you had asked us a year ago where the Broadway Women's Alliance would be and what we would look like, it would not be where we are today for a variety of reasons. So something that I'm very proud of that we have done all along the way is not waiting until we felt like we got it perfectly in order to do something. We decided all along, let's just try something. So that is true for our launch event, which we entered with an idea for programming and scheduling, which we weren't sure how people would react to. And that is very much the case moving into 2020, when none of us had tried to network over Zoom before. I mean, we were making all of this up as we went along. And I also think that through just completely the result of the circumstances, this organization is actually potentially stronger now 1 year later than we may have been in person, when we would all be navigating busy schedules, the demands of normal times, and that during this very challenging year, we've all actually needed one another in a bigger way. So our 1 year, we have close to 500 members of the Broadway Women's Alliance. We've had 20 events. It's so incredible for us to look at this community that we built because we wanted it, frankly. And it's really exciting to have met so many of our colleagues during this time.
I would echo too, Katie, don't you think it's neat that, or for this group too, that we've had members like rise up to say, we wanted to help you. Like, I think it's Jerry who did our logo. Am I right? Yes, Jerry, who works at Sereno Coin, like said, oh, I'll do your logo, and sent us things. And like, it's been really neat seeing people come out and say like, oh, we'll help you do that, or take a photo, or we'll design social cards. So that's been really neat. Like when people are like, oh, we'll just help. That's been pretty wild to see.
Well, and I think that's the beauty of an organization like this, is there are so many women in this organization who have amazing skills. And, you know, we have a press agent who used to work in tech PR. And so she did our website for us. Things like that we don't need to take this on ourselves, and we each have our own strengths, but it is not necessarily what the organization needs at that moment. But we have this incredible wealth of knowledge and skills and expertise from our members who are so enthusiastic and so willing to help and jump in. And I think that's been one of the most exciting things about this. I mean, we, the women on this call, talk all the time about, well, do any of us know how to do this? Do any of us know how to do this? And like, the answer might be no, but we have almost 500 members, and one of them does, and one of them probably does it incredibly well. And so that's been a really fun thing to sort of get to watch unfold. And you know, Katie, you said we created this organization because we wanted it, and that's true, we did. But I think more importantly, we all needed it. I mean, we created this organization because we needed it, and nothing like this existed. And I think we needed it before COVID, and we need it even more during and after COVID.
Well, and I think it's a testament to this leadership organization that I'm sitting in front of right now, because I don't necessarily think that you would have people volunteering to help if they didn't strongly believe in what you've built. So I think that's a testament to all of you sitting here right now, because we desperately needed this in our industry. And I'm amazed how quickly it feels like to me how quickly it's come about, but it wasn't very quickly for you all. But I just think that it's only going to get stronger. With that, what is the 5 to 10 year goal for the Broadway Women's Alliance? Diana, I'm going to throw that question to you.
Wow, SJ, 5 years, 10 years. I'm gonna say that it's not going to make sense for us to really figure out a 5-year or 10-year goal. And to go back to what Jen said earlier, we're just going to keep meeting the moment. We're going to keep figuring out at the time what the right thing is for this group. But we'll have a really strong foundation of how we're going to do it. We're going to take it really seriously, but we're not going to overthink things. If we had overthought this group, we still would not have a name. And we ultimately came to, with a lot of our events, with the group, if not now, when? And so that balance of meeting the moment and knowing that if you don't do it now, you're never going to do it. I think if we build that foundation and we continue doing that for the next 5 to 10 years, this is going to flourish into something that will blow our minds and we can't even imagine. And the ultimate goal is that we don't even have to exist, is that we find a world of equality. We find a world where women are given a seat at the table, where Shirley Chisholm saying things like, when there's no seat at the table for you, bring up a folding chair. There's never a need for a folding chair. How many of you have ever sat in a folding chair? I literally and metaphorically have sat in the folding chair many, 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 many times. And it would be really great if we can no longer need to exist and maybe want to exist, because we've gotten to a place of greater equality of gender. So that's what I'm hoping for in 5 to 10 years. Let's rewatch this then. If in 5 to 10 years, I don't even know, maybe video will be like in our glasses by then, who knows?
Well, for those that want to join, what does the programming look like going forward? What's planned for the next few months for the Broadway Women's Alliance?
Well, go ahead, Jen.
Oh yeah, so I think whereas 2020 was a year of introspection for many people and in our industry, and we were kind of, as Diana said, we were meeting that moment. 2021 is going to be a year of reemergence, right? Like some semblance of normalcy will be coming back. Broadway will be coming back, knock on wood. And that energy is all about reaching out and making connections. So for 2021, we are actively pursuing opportunities to collaborate with partner organizations across the industry and arts. One of our first events of 2021 was a collaboration with WOCA. It's Women of Color in the Arts. It was an inspiring panel of BIPOC luminaries on reclaiming and owning identity. We also partnered on an event with Open Stage Project, which you mentioned earlier. We also have an ongoing partnership with She NYC Arts and their educational arm, Create Her, which is a program for girl identifying and non-binary high school students interested in writing or producing for the stage. And we have a few other partnerships that are coming up and that are in the works and we're going to be announcing soon. And then coming up the last week of March, we are hosting a very special conversation that we're very excited about. It's going to be called From Broadway to Capitol Hill, the Power of Politics, Theater, and Community. And it's with Terry McCullough, who is the first woman chief of staff for the Speaker of the House, along with actress Celia Keenan-Bolger and director Shelley Williams. So we're really excited about that event. And you can RSVP for that on our website, and all our other upcoming events are going to be on our website as well.
When Diana told me about that the other day, I was like, that's so exciting. I cannot wait to be a part of that. That's so exciting. For those that want to join Broadway Women's Alliance, for those that want to find out more information once they watch this video, this interview, where can they go to sign up? Where can they go to find out more information for the Broadway Women's Alliance?
Just go to our website. It's the BroadwayWomen'sAlliance.com. All of our information's on there. Just click join us to get on our email list. You can check out all our events are on there. We post regularly on there as well. And also on social media. All of our handles are the same. We're on Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn as well. So just come and find us.
Well, I just have to say, again, thank you all so much for putting this organization together, for making it happen. I am so blessed to be a part of it, to learn from you all, to have a chance to just be a part of this organization in what we're going through right now, but also what's to come in the future. I just have to say just a giant thank you to you all for putting this amazing organization together.
Thank you, SJ.
Thank you for having us, and we're lucky to have you be part of the organization. So thank you.
Thank you.
iHeartRadio Broadway, driven by Mercedes-Benz. The best or nothing.